eyesight. So that's Welcome to the September 2013 Mayor's Ambassador Forum. It's a pleasure to have you here. Some of you have been here to all four. And if you remember the first one, a focus on biomed life science, the second one, aerospace, the third one, last April, getting Gilbert College and career ready, and this one, a focus, could you tell there's an emphasis on entrepreneurs? And so we're pleased to have a room filled with entrepreneurs, and the assignment goes something like this. As ambassadors of Gilbert, we need to make sure we give you updates. And so we'll do that first after our welcome and introductions, and then we'll get right into the program. Once we start with the theme of our emphasis on engaging Gilbert entrepreneurs, we'll give an overview. We'll have our keynote speaker. We'll talk about SciTech Gilbert. We'll have our panel discussion, and then we'll have our close. And so getting us ready for that, while I do the introductions, you can have that on the screen. We have some of our elected officials here and representatives of the elected officials. We'd like to have them stand. State Representative Warren Peterson, County Supervisor, and he's almost here. Keep standing, Warren. County Supervisor Danny Barney's almost here, but he will be here any minute. But Deputy Chief of Staff Candace Koppel. Candace. County Supervisor, keep standing. County Supervisor Steve Chukri. County Attorney Bill Montgomery. And Steve, it's not that we don't love you, but we also add this tagline, and Gilbert resident, County Attorney Bill Montgomery. Representing Congressman Paul Gosar, Sean Johnson. And here any minute too, representing Congressman Matt Salmon, Chuck Gray. And, Chuck, there you are. Thank you, Chuck. And then our Gilbert Town Council members, Councilmember Eddie Cook, Councilmember Jordan Ray, and Councilmember Jared Taylor. Let's give this group a big round of applause. The Ambassador Forum focus has been to bring all of us together, make sure you have updates, and so the emphasis has been on informing you. And we're meeting every 6 months, and so what happened last 6 months, we'll do a few of those slides, and then we'll make sure that some of the leaders here, you know who they are, so you're connected, and when you have thoughts and ideas, that you know who to go to, and then we go the E squared. We encourage and empower you to go forward as ambassadors of Gilbert. Before I hand over additional information to team members to give the updates, including our fabulous town manager, Patrick Banger, there's something special about today's Ambassador Forum, different than the other three. Now, as you know, as ambassadors, it's been more, we've given you the charge. Anyone who shows up, we get you on the email list, you get updates, and you're ambassadors. But we never had you officially do an oath or an office, but that leads me to today, for the first time at an Ambassador Forum, we have a real ambassador. Ambassador Enrique Hubbard Ria. To my right. It is a pleasure. And I know that at this point you would say retired diplomat, and wonderful to have you in the community, teaching at ASU and kind of splitting time between Mexico and the United States. But Enrique has been all over the world representing his country. And we're just pleased to have him here. And so we thought, because this is the first time we've had an official ambassador here, that we should present to you, it says Certificate of Appreciation presented to a real ambassador. Signed by the mayor. Please give me another big round of applause. Thank you. I mean, it's just not every day we could have a real ambassador here. Gilbert updates. The best person to give us those Gilbert updates of things that have really been highly emphasized in the last 6 months. Please welcome our town manager, Patrick Banger, and then at the appropriate time, he'll give a baton to Dan Henderson, who you'll introduce. Patrick, here, a big round of applause.
Thank you, Mayor. Gilbert, over the last year, has been the proud recipient of recognition in many national magazines and journals for some of the great things we've accomplished. A big factor to that success is the efforts of everybody in this room, from our public schools to our business leaders to our community leaders. I'm going to run through a couple of the stats, a couple of the awards we received this year, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that's relevant to today's forum. We were recently just ranked the 8th most thriving city in America out of, I'm not sure what the total scope is, but 8th. And what they looked at and what they judged us on is our low unemployment rate, our increasing property values, our low crime rate, the quality of our schools, the quality of our business climate, as well as something that is relevant to today's forum, that in Gilbert, we may not have realized this, we have over 250 patents issued annually to Gilbert residents for the ideas that they come up with in their businesses, entrepreneurs, and that's a great statistic, and one that I'm sure we'll continue to see grow as we continue to focus on entrepreneurial efforts in our community by both our businesses and residents. We were ranked the 2nd safest city in America this year. Again, that is a wonderful statistic, one that we're very proud of. And again, we have a phenomenal chief of police and a phenomenal police department and public safety department here in Gilbert. But again, those efforts are also, this ranking is also a result of the efforts of everybody in this room, because public safety is something that we all as a community must get involved with in order to affect these kind of outcomes. I remember when I first started at the town of Gilbert 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, the community I'd come from in Missouri, O'Fallon, Missouri, at that time, Gilbert was ranked the 5th safest city in America, and O'Fallon was ranked the 2nd safest city in America. So the mayor told me, well, now you know what you need to achieve. And so 2 years later, here we are, the 2nd safest city in America, and we will work very hard to unseat Irvine, California from their ranking as the #1 safest city in America. But we are very proud of that. It's something we'll continue to stay focused on. It's something that's going to take all of our focused attention to maintain. And then lastly, we were ranked here in Arizona as the fastest growing city in Arizona. We've come through a time of a very tough recession, but we are now seeing positive economic indicators and year-over-year increases in our property values, in our sales, in our unemployment dropping, that we feel pretty good that we are now slowly climbing out of this recession. And Gilbert is back on the track to growth, both residentially and commercially. Last year, we issued just under 2,500 single-family building permits, which was just about 1 out of every 4 permits issued in the entire greater metropolitan Phoenix region was issued here in Gilbert. This year, we still lead the pack. I think we're right at 1,600 single-family building permits right now. The next closest community would be the city of Phoenix at about, I think they're at about 1,100, 1,200. So again, Gilbert has become a premier destination for residential living, a beautiful community, and now we're working very hard to make Gilbert the premier destination for commercial activity and for corporations to call Gilbert their new home. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Economic Development, Dan Henderson, and he'll talk to us a little bit more about the town's efforts and some of the accomplishments over the last year in that area. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank all of you for joining us this morning. The program today is one that will showcase how Gilbert is engaging with entrepreneurs with an intent to grow and foster and develop an ecosystem that grows, nurtures, and fosters entrepreneurs, business, and innovation. I've shared with you in previous formats such as this a 5-year strategic plan. And this 5-year strategic plan for our economic development efforts include a focus on science and technology, for which we feel that focusing in on the creative class as well as science, technology, engineering, and math occupations will help us realize that goal. The 5-year projected goal is to attract 10,000 jobs to the community. $1.1 billion in capital investment. We anticipate that those numbers will will involve working with about 200 companies in various shapes and forms, and then ultimately an economic development focus on business development, which allows us to outpace our lead generation folks within the state and the region. At this time, I'd like to share with you some of the results coming out of our first year of that 5-year strategic plan. And again, this is the first year with an intent to develop an ecosystem around entrepreneurship, innovation, science, and technology. So last year, concluding 30 June in fiscal year 12-13, we announced 1,600 jobs, $194 million in capital investment. And some of the things that I'd like to share with you outside of those sort of transactional components are some of the major initiatives that we sought out to obtain. We earned an accreditation known as an Accredited Economic Development Organization. That's an accreditation coming out of an international industry association known as the International Economic Development Council. This accreditation really comes in and looks at our systems, our business models. It looks at our partnerships. It looks at the way with which we do economic development, business development, from everything from attracting jobs to attracting business, but more importantly to retaining businesses and growing businesses. So this accreditation took us the larger part of about 9 months to obtain. We set a goal to obtain this accreditation, and we were delighted that with this accreditation came with it some interesting facts that we were unaware of. Only 35 communities in the nation have obtained this accreditation, and we were the first community in the state of Arizona to obtain this accreditation. We also were delighted to announce St. Xavier University, which will be joining our mix of merchants and property owners in the downtown. St. Xavier University is the oldest Catholic university in the state of Illinois and certainly in the Chicagoland area. And St. Xavier University will be bringing a 90,000 square foot building into the downtown. And with it will come 3 schools, and these are their undergraduate and graduate schools of nursing, business, and education. We are delighted to bring to the community the first ever higher education offering, and we feel that St. Xavier will bring with it tremendous value. It will also bring a value system to the residents that mirror and parallel sort of our efforts. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Mayor Lewis, and he'll talk a little bit about how we're going to engage entrepreneurs.
Those are the updates, and when you leave today, there is a brochure with additional details about what Dan just presented and Patrick. This slide presentation will also be sent to all of you so that you can have that as a tool as the ambassadors of Gilbert. So we shift into the main theme. And in shifting, I give an overview quickly that you know better than I do, because this is a room filled with entrepreneurs, that what an entrepreneurial community means is you'll have economic growth, and this will help foster innovation. And when Dan just mentioned after 1 year of our 5-year goal of the 10,000 jobs, that there will be jobs. There are communities, if we were to do a random poll of each of you, well, when you think of an entrepreneurial community, what do you think of? And you might think of Austin, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Boston. Part of today, what we hope as we come together is that when you think of an entrepreneurial community, you will also think of the state of Arizona. And here are some examples that recognitions that have come to the state within the last year. CNN Magazine, #1 most entrepreneurial state. The Small Business Index recognition, the entrepreneurial.com, and then the Association for Corporate Growth. Those 4 recognitions have also said to us that Arizona is known as an entrepreneurial community. We also, from today's Ambassador Forum, want us to think Gilbert. Now, I realize that in past meetings, maybe you've left thinking, well, my tagline is Gilbert is clean, safe, vibrant. Or maybe even that, well, Gilbert is the satellite, algae, cancer fighting, cardiovascular, and non-controversial stem cell research community of the United States, or something like that. Here are 4 examples where individuals in Gilbert have just received some recognitions. And it's a sign that this spirit of entrepreneurship is growing and thriving, and there's more to come. And that's one reason why we're here today, to focus on it. And to keep that spirit going, we thought it would be appropriate to let you know about someone that has been very inspiring to the entire community, the entire state. Bella, could you please come forward? I introduced to you, now part of your company is to help people live their dreams. And so my dream when I was growing up, especially at age 17, was still to be in the NBA someday. I haven't quite made it, but I haven't given up on my dream. But this story, where we probably need to take an hour and a half, and we're trying to do this in a minute and a half instead, but Bella, at age 14, had a desire and went to her parents and said, I'd like to get a car when I'm 16. And great parents said, well, how are you going to do that? So far, you've got $350 in babysitting money. And she decided to invest it in a business. And I'm just doing the high-level items that I learned. In fact, if I really had my act together, I would have brought a pen to get an autograph, but maybe that's not appropriate in front of everyone. Go Gilbert magazine, you may have seen. This is Bella on the front, and most of the copies are gone. I went to try and get some last night in the stack. Some others have swiped them up, but this is Bella, and her story is described in here. So if you see a copy of the Go Gilbert magazine, and maybe others will want to get your autograph too, but this is one of those great stories that an idea of taking custom lockets, and then with friends starting to do jewelry parties, and it got bigger and bigger. Now, I understand that you're keeping your mom and dad busy, and you sent your mom over to Hong Kong and Japan and China, and this tiny little business in 2 years has grown to 200 million. Is that right? And so, similar to our ambassador, I'm going to present you an official certificate in just a minute, but this is one description of someone that was given about Bella. Bella's hard work has paid dividends, and the company announced its national launch in January of 2012. Bella has played a key role in Origami Owl's unprecedented growth, identifying jewelry trends, speaking at events, attending mayor's ambassador forums, and encouraging others to achieve their dreams. Origami, and I believe I was in Japan many years ago, and this is the folded paper. Is that where origami came from? And I believe the owl is tied to the knowledge and wisdom. And you could have said origami mayor, but you decided origami owl sounded better. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
I was going to do origami.
You're thinking about it. It was very close. But so Origami Owl's mission is to be a force for good, to love, inspire, and motivate people of all ages to reach their dreams and empower them to make a difference in the lives of others. I guess the short description is you're telling the entrepreneurs in this room to live their dream. Any other counsel you want to give them?
Sure. What I would counsel all the entrepreneurs who are trying to grow or start a business is, in the beginning, you have to set a goal. My goal was to get a car when I turned 16, and I was 14 years old, thinking ahead of my future, and, my main goal was just to get that car, and so setting a goal really made me want to work harder to achieve my dream of getting the Jeep, my Jeep Alice, who's really cute. But so I set my goal, and a lot of people will be like, I'll set a goal, but not a lot of people will actually take the next step and achieve that goal and make it happen. And so what I encourage all of you to do is set a goal and just make it happen, no matter what it takes, just make it happen, and always remember to be a force for good and follow your dreams no matter what, because you never know what could happen. I never expected my company to grow this fast, and for me to be 16 years old and have a national company, and you never know what could happen for you too. So I just encourage you guys to follow your dreams.
Thank you. We're going to Are we ready for a camera picture? And I'm going to have, let's have Mom and Dad and any other team members that you want to just come up here real fast to be introduced. We're going to do a team picture. And to Mom and Dad, I hope that she's not working you too hard. I understand that in a few minutes she'll get to school and do her 3 hours a day after school, and the two of you have been told to work all day long, but this is quite a team, and we weren't sure if this should be a certificate of Gilbert Young Entrepreneur Award of the Year. It looks like of Gilbert so far, and you'll be the one that we'll look to and the inspiration that you'll provide. So on behalf of the town of Gilbert, and I'll just get closer to the picture, we'll take it, and then we'll finish this. And I encourage all here to go out and take a look at that website. There are several inspiring websites. One that is filmed right in Agritopia. And I wanted to show that, but we thought again so we can get you back to school. But this is now the official moment where I give Bella the Gilbert Young Entrepreneur Award of Gilbert. How's that?
Yes.
And it gets better because we have an ambassador group here and objectives, and that's what we're going to focus on today, is creating awareness of entrepreneurship in Gilbert and establishing that culture where we collaborate, we mentor each other, and then we arm each other with tools that will make us successful. To help us on that journey, I'm going to give the microphone back to Dan Henderson to introduce our keynote speaker, and then we'll transition right into the panel and those objectives we'll be working on. Dan?
Mayor, thank you. Over the last year and a half, we've been working with a company known as Arizona Venture Partners. It's a company that was introduced to us by one of our partners, the East Valley Partnership. This is a company that we've been working with to identify fast-paced, high-growth, gazelle, if you will, type companies in the community. And through some primary research and some other sort of analytical approach, we've identified these companies and have tasked the folks with Arizona Venture Partners to reach out to these companies and begin working with them, identify their need for growth, identify how they define growth, and see if there's an opportunity to refer resources, make introductions to venture capitalists, any sort of growth equity of any kind to help these companies grow. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a brief introduction to Dana Rydell. She's the Chief Operating Officer for Arizona Venture Partnership. Dana's team has been identifying rapidly growing entrepreneurs in Gilbert and is here to discuss the findings and future steps. Dana has experience working with high-profile firms like Nationwide Insurance, ADP, Xerox, and her own consulting firm, Rydell Associates. Please welcome Dana Rydell.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I wish our origami owl person was still here because she is such an inspiration. I would have rather listened to her for the next hour than talk. But here I am. I first of all would love to get your congratulations for having made it through my first summer in Phoenix. I have survived, believe it or not. So I'm here today to spend a little time talking with you about who Arizona Venture Partnership is, and then the work that we've been doing with Dan Henderson, with the mayor, in support of the business community here in Gilbert. So 3 things. How are we going to lay the foundation even further to develop that ecosystem for our entrepreneurs, and how are we going to ensure their success moving forward? Well, let me tell you a little bit about what AZVP does, okay? Our full focus is on helping really great companies secure the additional investment funding that they need in order to grow to the next level. And we do that through a model that was developed by our CEO, Bob Pothier, who wishes he could be here, but he's with the governor of Idaho today. Sorry, Mayor Lewis, but governors trump mayors. He's working with Idaho around growth, economic development, and how you can partner with educational institutions to make that happen. So that's a lot of what we're doing here. His model was to develop an entrepreneurial center up in Idaho that trains interns from the local universities to be junior analysts. And he then turned them loose into the community to help companies develop what they needed in terms of their business plans and all the due diligence necessary in order to be ready to present to investors. And brought in over $20 million in investment capital to eastern Idaho. And there's not much in eastern Idaho, so that's quite an accomplishment. Worked with 500 businesses, created over 500 jobs, and has trained hundreds of junior analysts. So when he moved back here to Phoenix, the Phoenix area, he was asked by Rock Arnett to come do the same thing in the Valley. So about 1.5 years ago, we started Arizona Venture Partnership, and we've been doing some really great work, I'm proud to say. So let me tell you just a bit about how we look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem and at a particular company. Our interns are able to do a really quick due diligence on any company that's really interested in growing to the next level. And if Bob feels as if an investor or a lender is going to find value in that company, then we will take them on as a client. And we're a nonprofit, so we do that very, very inexpensively with the idea of supporting economic growth. So we will, in many of those areas, provide project support to companies from an investor's perspective. And that's what makes Arizona Venture Partnership really unique as compared to many of the other support services that are out there. It's an investment perspective, and we also have that project support so that if a competitive analysis hasn't really been done to the level it needs to be done, we know how to do that deep dive. Our interns know how to do that, and they are unbelievable. And once we feel that a company's ready to go to a bank, to go to an angel investor, to go to a venture capital company, we will help them prepare their pitch, we'll coach them through that, and we'll help them secure that funding. So that's what we do, very briefly. If you'd like to learn more, I'll be back out in the lobby afterwards. Now, our secret sauce is our junior analyst interns. We offer paid internships to both ASU and Thunderbird students, primarily MBA students. We train them as junior analysts. Bob does that. I train them as management consultants. That's my background. And we then, like I said, turn them loose. And they do unbelievable work. They are just such fabulous students. And we're also now starting to take on the honor students in the Barrett School of Finance from ASU. And they're going to be doing thesis projects with us. So it's really an exciting opportunity for them. And in Bob's time up in Idaho, the junior analysts that had worked with him were securing about $10,000 more in initial starting salaries. So it really is a great opportunity for them as well as the companies that get the benefit of their expertise. So some of what we've found is that in addition to working with individual companies, we've been working with a lot of economic development groups. And Gilbert was one of our first clients in that arena. Thank you, Dan. And we did some really exciting stuff and are looking forward to doing more stuff with Gilbert. So we started by really helping Gilbert totally understand its business community, because education isn't just to put out there, education is to take in as well. So a lot of the research that we did was helping the Economic Development Department get a really good handle on what that business community looked like, who the gazelles, as Dan mentioned, were. And we did that in a really analytical way. We identified every business in Gilbert that met a certain criteria that Dan set. We then ranked them using a rating system that really looked at their growth potential. And we developed a program to help go out there and learn more through discussions with many of those business leaders, which is an ongoing process that we're engaged in. So that is kind of the groundwork that we laid. That was phase 1, and that's an ongoing learning process. Phase 2 is really looking at developing business seminars and workshops that are really customized to help businesses understand what an investor is going to be looking for in order for you to secure growth funding. So that's a unique perspective, I think, that we bring to the forefront. We're going to be looking at developing CEO roundtables to help entrepreneurs learn from each other here in Gilbert. That's really, really critical. Okay? And we're also going to make our offerings, in other words, our due diligence services and project services that our interns can provide, available to businesses here in Gilbert as well. And then, and this is what we're really excited about, with St. Xavier moving in and building a building here in Gilbert, we're hoping to become an anchor for an entrepreneurial center that's co-located with St. Xavier. So we're really thinking that this is going to create that ecosystem that's so important. In fact, all of our research that we provided to Dan indicated that the ecosystem with a hub, a center for entrepreneurs, is one of the key best practices from around the country. And the ecosystem isn't just the business community. The thing that Patrick was talking about, all of the wonderful awards that you're winning about quality of life, that is critical because entrepreneurs have families, you know, they need a place to live that supports them and their dreams, both personally and privately. So very quickly, this entrepreneurial center, we're hoping will provide a full range of services for entrepreneurs. And some of the things that we're imagining at this point would be our ability to offer some due diligence consulting and to also house Renewable Tech Ventures, which is Bob's venture capital company, as well as Sorensen Capital out of Utah. So we're hoping to actually create a source of funding there as well as just support services. In addition, we're looking at specialty consultants who could provide services to the business community and also that executive for hire model. So if you're not quite ready to have a CFO, for instance, or a chief marketing officer, then you could get those services at the center. And for instance, Bruce, whom you're going to meet in just a minute, has indicated some real interest in co-locating with us as well. Now, I don't know if Dal is here. Dal, okay. Dal is Bob's partner in Renewable Tech Ventures, along with a few other folks, and he has kindly agreed to spend a couple minutes talking with you about what some of his plans are. He has not, I don't think, yet experienced a Phoenix summer, but he's going to. He just moved here from Canada. So please welcome Dal.
Thank you. Yes, in fact, in my hometown in Canada right now, it's snowing. So we made sure we put on our Facebook status our picture by the pool this morning. Now, I'm Bob Pothier's partner. We started a venture fund focusing on clean tech and renewable energy, but because of the quality of the deal flow, we ended up mostly in advanced materials. And we're doing some really exciting things with carbon fiber, carbon nanotubes, and these are really, carbon nanotubes are the building blocks of really what is becoming the next generation of advanced material science. I've only got a couple of minutes, so I can take a few questions after, but our fund is just located here in the Valley. Bob, I met Bob through using his interns in our original fund. We found that the quality of the interns that came from Bob were better than our own staff. And they were very inexpensive. And so what happened is we started using Bob's interns and got such quality work from the interns that we ended up hiring 3 of them over the time and actually placed them in other companies that we were associated with. But ultimately, Mary, you have no idea the value of what this East Valley Partnership will do for your city. It really brings to the forefront venture funding, because once deals are structured and prepared for venture, it's very easy for us to make the case to our investors that these are good quality deals because the quality of the background development work that's been done. So you're doing all the right things. In fact, I'm sitting here just stunned and amazed. And who would have thought a 14-year-old would end up with a Lamborghini as part of her desire to have a car? It's just remarkable. So we're excited to be in the Valley. It's a beautiful place to live and great quality of life. And we'll be funding a number of companies here in the Valley. We've actually got 2 on our radar right now that one's based in Gilbert, one's based in Queen Creek that we'll be looking to fund. And so we bring in mostly family office money out of Europe as well as sovereign wealth fund money out of Europe. Most of our investors are European based. So this is new money coming into the Valley that you wouldn't normally have seen previous, and our funds are growing quite substantially in size as well. So thank you.
Stick around for a second. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer them for you. But before we do that, we just want to say thank you for the opportunity you've provided us to support you. And any questions? Yes?
What's the current size of your fund? It's funded and ready to invest.
You know, yeah, the question was, it's the size of our fund and what do we have ready to invest? Actually, our first fund we closed. It was a $20 million fund. It was kind of a advanced material fund that ended up, it was designed to be a $200 million fund, but after we'd raised $20 million, the companies within our funds had taken such huge leaps in valuations, we were either going to have to revalue the fund or close it, so we closed it. We're now starting on a $250 million fund that will literally focus on, and our region is really the western United States. But what you'll find in Arizona, and one of the things that attracts us here, there's very little venture money here. And so what's happening is, this is called flyover country, that if you're not in Silicon Valley, you know, East Coast, West Coast, you know, we're not seeing, like, for example, in clean tech, you don't see coastal ventures here much. You don't see any of the big venture funds coming into Arizona, which is surprising given the quality of your institutions, your research, and your entrepreneurs. And so, you know, we kind of see this as our own backyard and playground now that we kind of have first run of all the great deals. So our next fund, which will launch in probably about a year from now, will be right around $250 million. And most of those commitments are already in place.
Okay, if you have any other questions, we'll be happy to take them outside. Okay, so thank you very much, and look forward to working with you down the road.
Dana, thank you. We appreciate your services, and quite honestly, can't do it without you. So, as we look to all of our partners, we really enjoy this partnership. It's beginning to bear some fruit, and it's, as you can see, building on that developing an ecosystem. And so, we're delighted with the work. Dana, thank you. The next phase of the of this ambassador forum will involve a panel discussion. But before I introduce the panel members, I wanted to take a minute and just briefly set the stage. There's a statewide initiative known as the SciTech Festival, and the SciTech Festival is really a culmination of events, expositions, displays, and other things and events that can deliver a model of what a community and, quite frankly, what a state is doing around science and technology. This is the brainchild of a gentleman by the name of Jeremy, and we're delighted that Gilbert is able to participate in the SciTech Festival. What we've asked each of these panel members to do is serve as what we call, or are calling, thread leaders. And these thread leaders are really just vertical leaders in the community that can help nurture, foster, mentor, coach anyone interested in putting on some kind of an exposition or an event in the town of Gilbert. These events can be very much like a display. It could be a tabletop. It could be centered around education. It could be an evening at one of our great high schools, K through 12 system, etc. So there's really no parameters on what this SciTech Festival looks like. And in Gilbert, we're delighted to call it SciTech Gilbert. So with that, I'd like to briefly show some of the things that are taking place in the community already that can hopefully generate some ideas. And with that, Amanda?
Please join us if you're interested in participating or sponsoring the Spark App League. Please visit our website at www.sparkappleague.com.
So the idea of that is just to briefly show how broad and there are a wide range of things that we can do. This is our Spark App League in concert with ASU, and it's a wonderful event where we're taking Gilbert data and we're pushing this data out into an open format and allowing high school students to essentially take a piece of these data and put them into some kind of an app that they can make available to not only the community and the taxpayers, but certainly the state and the nation. And so we hosted our first ever App League last year. We'll continue to do that. This year, the SciTech Gilbert will launch on 31 January, which will serve as the kickoff for our SciTech Gilbert, or our SciTech Festival in Gilbert. So with that, I'd like to briefly introduce our panel that we've assembled to you today to carry on that idea of what inspired these entrepreneurs, how they're inspiring others in the community, and just a fantastic group that we're really, really delighted that you could spend some time with us today and just talk to the community about what you're doing as entrepreneurs, what got you interested in becoming an entrepreneur, what motivated you, and what got you excited about being an entrepreneur. So on our panel today, we have Patrick Banjer. He's the town manager for the town of Gilbert. We've got Craig DeMarco, partner with Upward Projects. Joe Johnston, entrepreneur and restaurateur, but also the managing partner for Agritopia. We've got Adelita Severinson, serves as president and CEO of Bush Tech. And we've got Jason Barney with Circle G Development. Moderating the panel today is a gentleman by the name of Bruce Law of Sprout Marketing. Over the course of his 28-year marketing career, which began in Madison Avenue, Bruce has become a recognized expert in building brands, generating sales, and taking companies from startup to late stage, high tech to packaged goods, for-profit to philanthropic. Bruce has done the marketing for household names like Intel and Lever Brothers, as well as mid-sized companies like Little Giant Ladders and Provo Craft. He's personally served as VP of Marketing for more than 150 years. As you saw, he's interested in providing services to the town of Gilbert, hopefully in our downtown. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Bruce Law.
Good morning. Just a point of clarification, not 150 years, but 300 companies. So I'm really glad to be here. Dan, thank you so much. Very kind to introduce. And you probably heard a little bit of marketing spin in that bio, so I apologize. It's just I can't help myself. I started doing advertising and marketing when I was 6. I actually have some ads that I drew when I was that young and created products. And so I just have always been into advertising and marketing. And so I will really try to keep my comments, contained. It's been really great to visit with many of you beforehand and to see the passion that you have for your companies, for growth, for business. And hats off to the mayor and to the town of Gilbert for bringing entrepreneurship here and home. One quick thing that I've noted throughout my career, and that's been reinforced by leaders in business of the likes of Jeff Bezos or Mark Hurd of Hewlett-Packard, Steve Ballmer, others, as I've asked them, what do you see as America's big strength on a global scale? They all say one thing, and it's entrepreneurism. If you look in history, every single time America has suffered a setback, a depression, a recession, some kind of chink in our forward momentum, 100% of the time, it's entrepreneurship that brings us out more quickly. It helps us rebound more speedily, and it's that seething energy that we all find with entrepreneurism that really drives this engine of America. It's not really run by a few big companies, which is encouraging. So we have some tremendous panelists here today, and I'm very excited to lead some of the discussion. I'm intending to have them do most of the talking, but I'll interject from time to time. And then if you have questions, I would say if it's a burning question that you've got to get clarification, please raise your hand and I'll pull you into the discussion. If it's something that you think could wait to the end, we will have some time at the end as well for you to ask questions. And let me just clarify, because I know time is always an issue. What is our hard stop for this part of the agenda? I just want to be sure I'm...
Around 9.
Around 9. So we got about 20 plus minutes, right? Okay, so we're going to rock and roll. So first quick question then to panelists, and I'll start, we'll just do ladies first, okay, if you don't mind, Adelaida. What do you think some of the qualities of entrepreneurism are? What would you summarize as, you got the goods or you don't? Assuming that not everybody has an origami owl idea, potentially, right?
Well, thanks for having me this morning. Actually, I feel sort of outnumbered here, being the only woman on the panel. So, having said that, being an entrepreneur, being a woman, but also being a minority, just in that sense, for me, it's having faith, and not just in yourself, in your company, but also some kind of out of the world faith, like if it's God or something like that. Because I know for me, I probably call out to him 20 times a day, and then have no fear. But also being resilient, being able to be knocked down a couple times, but being having the character and the perseverance to stand back up again and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I am, but being able to do that. So.
Thank you. Craig, how about a question for you? What prompted you to become an entrepreneur? What was driving you behind the decision in entrepreneurism?
Funny enough, Dan Henderson and I were in high school together in a DECA program. It was kind of a marketing-based program.
I was in DECA too.
Right. And I looked at it more as an entrepreneurial program, teaching you how to do things, use your resources, and challenge the status quo. And it piqued my interest and sparked my desire to become an entrepreneur. And having to hustle a little bit, coming from a family who didn't have a lot of money growing up, had to pay for college, so I had to figure out ways to connect all the dots and kind of carry that forward.
Let me ask Patrick then, as a government worker, entrepreneurism and government, do they work together? What do you do in your daily job to foster entrepreneurism, or what could you do more?
Sure. Well, as a governmental agency, our focus is on, especially in a growing community like Gilbert, creating long-term sustainable value for our community. And obviously, the health and success of our business sector is one of the most fundamentally important things to any of the efforts we undertake in helping to create that. The entrepreneurial class, just as much as we focus on trying to attract large corporations, medium-sized corporations, and select industries to bring that focus on the STEM workforce that we've built here in Gilbert and we continue to expand upon. We're also trying to create that entrepreneurial class and give them the tools, the connections, the support they need so that they can take their idea, as young Bella has done, and grow it into something that becomes a modern-day success story here in our community and create jobs and value and create that home base within Gilbert.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to come back to one other topic as a follow-on to that. So, Alan, in your opinion, as you've been an entrepreneur and your company is Art Intersection, what are some of the things that are the killers of entrepreneurism or the things to watch for?
As Adelaida mentioned a moment ago, it's that self-confidence. It's that willingness to fail, to get back up again. Being an entrepreneur, you're faced with tasks you don't know anything about. It's having a mentor that gives you that guidance. And the greatest fortune, I think, for an entrepreneur that will be successful is to have that mentorship available to get them through those rough spots. We grew a company some years ago from a couple people to about 70 folks in the technology space. And it's about having people smarter than the entrepreneur engaged, and the entrepreneur who doesn't ordinarily have the personality so much to listen, but then actually to develop that skill to listen and to trust the people around them.
Fascinating. Very helpful. Jason, Circle G Development. Tell us a little about how entrepreneurism has helped you, or how that spirit of entrepreneurism factors into your work week, if you will.
In the development business, and I wear a lot of hats, I think, when I come to this table, but in the development business, it's a constantly evolving situation. Obviously, we've just come out of a pretty significant upheaval, downturn, whatever you want to call it, but things are coming back, and so you're really faced with the need to be able to move on your feet, see what's changing, and be willing to kind of change your model and change your approach to adapt to shifting market conditions. So the adaptability is definitely a big thing.
Adaptability, maybe coupled with resiliency, like we've talked about. Joe, you've been in the restaurant business, in the development business, in a host of things over your career. As you saw opportunities to, as I've experienced some of your products, bring your family life, your holistic experience growing up into the forefront, where some people would leave their family, if you will, to start something, or kind of abandon their faith to go do something like this. You've kind of brought it all forward with you. How have you struck that balance?
Well, we make an intentional effort to have an integrated life. We try to make sure that most of the things we do are within a 10-minute radius. My wife is very adamant that we not go do things out of this community. And I think putting roots down in this community and focusing on entrepreneurial activities here makes for a simpler life. My commute is 90 seconds to my office. No restaurant is further than 10 minutes from the house. My boys work in the restaurants. We've tried to blend it. I always have a huge amount of conflict of interest because I'm involved at so many different levels, but those conflicts of interest are actually well-intentioned to try to pull it all together and have a simpler, enriching life and be able to have a great impact in one community versus being spread over a larger area.
Fascinating. That's a really interesting point of view. I'd not heard that before, but it totally makes sense, especially given the embodiment of what you do for a living and what you do to live. Let's come back around for a minute. I want to just take a quick break for a moment and see, with this kind of fertilizing ideas, right? Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like to ask any or all of the panelists at this point? I've got more questions. I'll keep going, but I just want to see if anyone's prompted as a question for any of these panelists at this moment? Any questions? Okay, let's keep going. I just want to be courteous. Patrick, you'd said something about Gilbert's intention to foster entrepreneurism and things like that. How would you say, and I'll open this to others as well, but how would you say education can impact that? And when does it start? Is there a time when you start caring, and is it a time when it's like, no, we can't be bothered? Or where does entrepreneurism, how far do you reach into that system as a government group?
Sure. You know, I'll highlight something that we've done here in the last town that Dan touched upon, the Spark App League. And we're doing that in partnership with ASU's Polytechnic College as well as Intel Corporation here in town. And it started along the lines with, and with the advent of mobile technology and access to data. As a governmental organization, we collect a lot of data in a lot of different ways through our daily activities, and it just sits on our shelves or sits on our servers, and really we don't do anything with it, or traditionally we haven't done anything with it. So it started with a desire to put that data to work, to mine that data, to find value in that data, to find predictive analytics that we can use to become better and more focused at our jobs, to deliver better services. And so from there, we thought about what's the best ways to do that. And one of the best ways to do that is, in a sense, create sort of a crowdsourced approach to finding solutions, finding value, finding data applications. And we decided one of the best ways to do that was to try to create spark an interest in our high school students towards this emerging technology, which continues to grow. It was a $46 billion industry worldwide last year. It continues to have phenomenal growth. And this is a skill set that a high school student could learn and create real value, create a company out of, even at a very early age, or at least spark an interest in the STEM industries and sciences. So we partnered with, and we wanted to make it not only geared towards Gilbert High School, so we opened it up to the entire region, but in taking that data that would then solve some problems, create some value for our community, it also sparks an interest in our high school age students to begin to discover and explore career paths that they may have a personal interest in, a knack in, but to spark that creativity, to get their interest going in something beyond what they may have traditionally thought of, and do it in a way with great support with a premier university as well as a worldwide premier corporation to mentor these students and to provide them with guidance. So that's just one small way we've done it. Through Dan's efforts and his office, we're also trying to connect people with ideas, to people with venture capital funds, to people with resources. As a government, it's good for us to understand what we can and cannot do and what we do effectively and what we should leave to the private sector. But those are a few of the areas that we do to try to encourage entrepreneurship within our community.
Awesome. So kind of providing that, if you will, to summarize, like a connective tissue to bring it about. Now I'm going to ask this to the broader panelists as well. Is there a time when you faced a challenge, a daunting task, maybe something that really caused that resiliency to be flexed? When you either reached out to the community, you maybe connected with an education group. You know, Dal Zamp mentioned the E-Center up in Idaho, that the interns really helped that organization at the right time. Any anecdote that you'd like to share where you kind of looked outside of your own individual moxie, if you will, and grabbed some help from others? Please, Joe.
Well, we're just doing it right now, actually. We are working with ASU on an iProject, which is a very fascinating program through Polytechnic School of Engineering. At the barbecue, we use a smoker to smoke our meat, and we know kind of rules of thumb on how it works. But now we're going to have them come and document exactly temperature profiles, humidity, smoke opacity for the smoker, and then we're going to work jointly with them to develop a control system for it, a high-tech control system for a very old-school process. And we're just excited to work with them because they infuse a lot of new blood into the process, and it's super exciting. So that's something that we're reaching out to ASU, and ASU is reaching out to us for a partnership, and hopefully to develop a control system that can be sold.
Fascinating. So barbecue goes high tech.
Yes.
Who knew, right? Please, Adelaida, and then Jason.
And so I wanted to sort of dovetail on the question that you had for Patrick and for Joe in terms of the educational process and where does that begin. And personally, it started this summer for me in terms of my own children. So I have 11-year-old twins and a 14-year-old, and they're always asking for money, right? Mom, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. And I said to them, you really know how to spend money? Do you even know how to make it? And so this summer, they all put on their entrepreneurial hats, and we have blackberries in our backyard. So one of my twins decided that he wanted to sell blackberries. He went to Fry's and saw how expensive they were. So he put on his creativity cap and decided to package them in a certain way and sell them to friends of mine, and made some money that way. My other son just went next door to the neighbor, said, hey, I want to mow your lawn. My oldest went back to his old karate school. So I think in terms of when does it start, yes, I understand, high school, but I think we need to start it even younger. So the K through 12, and it hits a hot button for me because Bush Techs, we are an international company. We do hire interns from, colleges and whatnot. But with my involvement with the Gilbert Education Foundation, for example, we dig even deeper and even go younger and start with the younger folks and invite business people from the community to come into our schools and take tours and to see what's going on in the classroom. Afterwards, sort of having little round tables that we could actually ask business leaders to take the pulse of what kinds of people are you hiring? What are we doing in the educational system to help our students to get to that point? Are they learning the right things eventually when they go out into the real world? Do they have the skills to do that? So the K through 12, definitely. And then also with the Chamber, the Partners in Progress program, which is also another initiative that's going on to get, again, business leaders, the government, and the community to partner with each other to be able to, foster that mentorship, as Alan had talked about, to foster the internships and to reach out, because as a small business, a lot of times we can't afford, the capital for personnel. So why not make it a win-win situation where you can kind of get it for a lesser price or maybe even free, be a mentor, teach folks, and then, put them out into the world and maybe even groom them to the folks that you want to hire eventually, as Dana was mentioning earlier, the people that you want to groom and train to eventually hire into your own backyard and keep Gilbert people here. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Jason, did you want to comment?
Yeah, your question is, at what point do you go kind of outside of yourself to get some inspiration, so to speak? And the reality is, I think, and Alan even mentioned it, when you come up with a great idea, but there's so much you don't know. There's so much you've never seen it done. You have no idea how it's going to work, and so it's critical that as soon as possible you do that. In the 90s, I did a tech startup, and Gilbert was a smaller place at the time. I had to go outside of this community to Scottsdale to find people who'd kind of been there, done that, to figure out how to model my way into building a company. Gilbert is not that way anymore. Gilbert has a huge amount of resources and a huge amount of talent and a huge amount of examples to model after. Just to kind of call out a couple of them, we were fortunate to hear from Dana and hear about her interns today. Being able to have somebody like that to go to. I've actually spent the last 6 months kind of traveling around the country with Dana and some of her interns on a project, and it's really, really powerful to be able to to hear from somebody who's kind of been there, done that on some things, to get you some advice. But the other thing we've really got going for us is in our schools. Education is really evolving to where it's not so much sort of the rote learning like maybe it once was, but to truly modeling true professional environments. Campo Verde, I see Sean Hardinas is in the audience, and what they've got going on at Campo Verde is a very impressive, not just kind of tell you hypothetically and theoretically what biology is about, but let's go into to see it in the real world. And when we got smart kids, and when they can see stuff in the real world, it takes them about 2 milliseconds to put the pieces together that in just a traditional classroom environment would just gone like this. So we've got great things happening in the schools as well.
Very helpful. Hopefully we'll get less of the, Mom, Dad, when am I ever going to use this again, right? I'll be able to apply it. It's worth noting that when I was a junior in college, I interned for the company that I joined in New York City in a spring term, and it was that internship that really paved the way for me to go back full-time and work at the ad agency. And so I'm a huge believer in internships, and we've had interns over the years, and it's just a great opportunity. It's a fun time of life. It's a passionate, open, exciting time of life, and you've got a lot of just raw firepower ready to be applied. Any other comments before I throw out other questions? So, as far as the entrepreneurial spirit that we all love to foster here, are there things that you can pinpoint that would be things to guard against when you're doing entrepreneurs? And we've talked about the positives, the things that really work to our advantage: resiliency, faith, confidence, determination, all of those things. Are there things that are also things to watch for that are potentially negative from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Craig, please.
One thing that's really close to our company right now, when we started up, and I'm in the restaurant development business, we've opened up 12 stores over the past 12 years, all in adaptive reuse processes, all surrounded by residential. We're really passionate about the communities that we do business in. And like the gal who started the Origami Owl company, my first job washing dishes was to get a car. And I've worked in every capacity in our restaurants. And as an entrepreneur, now that we're a $35 million company with over 500 employees, I find myself still stuck in a technician role, knowing that I can go into my businesses and do those jobs, but what my company really needs is strong leadership and vision. And it's always hard for me to remember every day when I get up not to go work in my business, to work on my business, and something I have to really push myself every day to do.
Well, that's a very helpful comment. You know, I've actually hired a coach to keep me doing that because I tend to do the same thing. So once a month, he sort of pulls me out, so I'm forced to work on my business, not in it. Please, Alan?
Yeah, I'd have to echo that remark about knowing what you're good at and then knowing what your company needs. And that may actually entail hiring somebody to do what you're good at so that you can continue to develop the vision. The communication of the vision to your organization is absolutely critical for a small organization to grow. That core competency needs to be identified early on. And if you drift from that core competency, you're going into very troubled waters. Most companies don't have the capital to afford that kind of deviation, so they have to stay extremely focused. If the core competency proves to not be an effective or profitable direction, then that has to be seen also and refocused. So refocusing, a business plan is a temporary document. It gets you started, but you always have the vision, and that vision has to be something you hold true to. I do want to touch on one point about young people, and to Adelaide's comment also, that we're in an environment where opportunities are very ripe. However, we don't always see them. And I think that in the younger people, we need to give them permission to be entrepreneurs. They need to be told it's okay. And that needs to come from people who are in their view as who they respect. Their role models need to let that be known. It's okay. And not everybody should be an entrepreneur. Right? We can't idolize this role because it's not appropriate for everybody to be an entrepreneur. However, those people who have that aptitude need to be given permission when they're young and allow that to be developed. So it's just a part of our society and our culture. And in our society versus the international community, we have fostered this. As you said, we recover because of entrepreneurship. More jobs are created in the small business. You know, we are the backbone, in a sense, of the economic structure and success of our country. And that entrepreneurship role, it lives in a few people, but not everybody. But when you have that opportunity to foster that in a young person who can grow into it, that's the place where we need to be doing our fostering. And then they'll grab onto the bar and go.
Very helpful. Very helpful. Joe, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just briefly. I think for any person, their greatest strength is always their greatest weakness as well. And since for entrepreneurs, being persistent and persisting with shepherding an idea and promoting an idea, the flip side of that would be not listening to other people's ideas. And so one always has to judge whether you should add in their ideas and make for a better idea, or if that's just extraneous noise. And having the wisdom of Solomon to figure out, which way to go, that's a part of the job.
Part of the job, absolutely. Please, Jason, then I have one last question.
I think you've got to be really careful to avoid the tendency to say, that's a dumb idea, that'll never work. In my business, I deal with a lot of more conventional developments, and if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to go out kind of off location, off street, and some guy's old farmhouse and make this restaurant, and most people would say, that's a dumb idea. Well, now you go out there today, and that's one of the smartest ideas anybody's ever seen. So you got to be ready to take on something that nobody would think to do.
That is true. Joe, was that your idea?
It was.
Okay. Man, there's vision. That's true. If the vision's just far enough, it goes beyond crazy to like brilliant, right? Let me ask one last question, because I know we're at our time limit. There's a lot of government officials here, and Patrick's with us and others from Gilbert. Is there one thing that you would tell them as government leaders from an entrepreneur standpoint to be sure in mind and follow? Anything that comes to mind that you would say, be sure you do this? Oh, no.
Oh, they tell us on a daily basis.
I know you hear this ad nauseum, I'm sure, but I'm just dying to hear. What would you tell Patrick and Mayor Lewis and others from an entrepreneur standpoint? Certainly they're open. Certainly they're passionate about this. And certainly the evidence seems to suggest that they're leaning into entrepreneurism in a big way. What do you think? I'll let you smolder on that for a sec.
So I can't leave this conversation. Did I just cut you off? Sorry. I can't leave this conversation without suggesting that STEM should really be STEAM, okay? That we need
Amen.
A in arts. Thank you. We really need, and it's back to permission, we need to keep all the focus in our education and our empowerment to a broad group of people, and not just the science and technology and math folks. That actually is my background, but as we've gone into this venture of Art Intersection, actually see the effect of alienating a segment by acknowledging and rewarding the STEM side of the world. And we want to keep the art in there because it is the art side of that makes the iPhone so usable, and the other phones. It is that perception and that design that makes us powerful. So we have to keep that going. We can't alienate. As we alienate a group, then we disassociate them with our success. So I want to make sure the A stays in STEM.
Very interesting. That's a great comment. I think that's very valid, especially with recent Fast Company highlighting the lead designer for Apple, and just a focus on all of us being so much more attuned to good design. We're immersed in it more than ever before. Having used technology and things in the early days, now we're very, very picky. We want that UI to be amazing. Other things that you might say to government leaders? I got to believe you're all just super happy, then that's good.
I spoke yesterday to the City of Phoenix on walkability of certain neighborhoods and community development. And one of the head planners was there, and afterwards we were chatting, and she said, hey, what can my department do and my staff do to help you? And I said, can you help me bend the rules more? And not when I go down there, hit me with the status quo. With when we have new ideas and the staff being open, at least listening and trying a different way to get things done. So.
See, Alan, I don't ask for permission. I ask for forgiveness later. No, actually, and I have had my issues with the town. We recently had some TIs and some when we remodeled the location that we are in now, and we still are kind of in that process. So they've heard my concerns, and most of them were really trying to streamline some things because, like Craig said, we're trying to work on our business, not in it. And so, in order to move ahead and grow, being able to streamline the processes of anything, whether it be licensing, whether it be permitting, and those types of things, which they have. So it's been great, but also being open as they have been, but open and listening to some of our ideas, because we really do need to work with each other, not against each other, because we need each other. So.
Very helpful. Interesting, please. Oh, Alan, one comment, then we'll go to Joe.
Very quickly, to the point about bending the rules, I would imagine of the people that I know here and those that I've just met this morning, we probably do tend to ask forgiveness a lot more than we ask permission, and I think an entrepreneur has to know where the boundaries are and push that boundary to see if it moves. And so bending the rules, pushing the boundary, finding the edge is critical, and that lives in very successful entrepreneurs who don't necessarily understand the word no, and they probably have said I'm sorry a few times, but not often. It's just we've got to push those boundaries and push regardless of the field.
Please, Joe.
I think the town is very progressive. I think Mayor and Patrick and then just on down the line are very progressive. I think that my comment would be try to push all of that down, because while you all might be very progressive, I think it's still training staff to be progressive as well. And if we can avoid having to go to a higher level to get something fixed because we need to bend the rules, if there was a culture of bending the rules within limits, we understand there's life safety issues that have to be addressed, but pushing it down so that we don't have to call somebody higher up and say, hey, this is just not working for me.
Very helpful. Please, Jason, last comment.
And we really do have a great environment here in Gilbert compared to some of the other jurisdictions in terms of the open-mindedness, the willingness to dialogue and all that. But when we talk about bending the rules, it's not because we're trying to get away with something or that sort of thing. Usually it's because we're trying to innovate. Usually when we're trying to find a new path that doesn't have a code for that path is because we're trying to come up with some new idea or some new innovation. And what will happen to us a lot of times is innovation means a lot of false starts. Innovation means let's try this, let's see how that works, and then you throw it out there, no, that doesn't work, now we need to find some other path, a new innovation, because that one didn't really work out. A lot of times what will happen is, no, you already said you're going to do this innovation over here, so you can't do that innovation, and then you kind of get penalized for innovating. And so we want to create an environment, and we largely have that here in Gilbert, but an environment that's very incentivized toward innovating. And you know what? Take a risk, innovate, and if it doesn't work, we'll go with you and try to figure out something else.
Very helpful. My only add to this whole discussion would be proximity is big, right? If you've got a collection of companies or groups that are near each other, it really helps. In a desert environment, we tend to kind of roll out to a spur of open ground and start something, right? But there's a collectiveness that I think is beneficial. That's why I'm excited to see some of the things you talked about with St. Xavier and such. That brings companies together, kind of surrounding each other, so there's a lot of ideas. This has been really helpful. I've taken us too long to have a lot of Q&A, but you probably have a lot of unique thoughts from here. I know, Berkeley, you have one question. Maybe we'll field one quick question, and then let's take it afterward. Is it fast? Anyone know how many IPOs in 2012 in the U.S.? I don't know the number. Okay. I appreciate that comment. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any other comments or thoughts or input? I appreciate your time. I really appreciate the panelists and getting to know them better and having the great and resilient comments. Thank you again for your time today, and I'll turn it back over to who's next. Thank you.
Big hand for Bruce. Thank you. And Berkeley, I'll slip this in then come back so that comment, and I'm not sure if we picked it up on the microphones, but the IPOs and the land of the free, home of the brave, where we want businesses to thrive. That last part is an indication to me, just like we wanted to talk to Bella for maybe an hour and a half, we'd like to talk to this group for a day and a half for the feedback that you could provide. And thank you for just some of those quick comments, also related to how we can do better from a Gilbert perspective, which I give to all of you. And then the segue was, this is Constitution Week, and Gilbert celebrates that too, so you're invited Saturday night to come down to Constitution Fair. But that gets back to, we need, when you look at business and education government coming together works well, when feedback continues and when things aren't quite right, that we get a fix. And so, as said, Bruce, this is a great group that has been giving us feedback, and we thank them for that. So the closing part, we came here to talk about entrepreneurship, and all I feel is inspiration. And so to the 6 of you, and representing many here, and Adelaide, I'll even say, I'm going to tie this into a bullet of SciTech. Well, in fact, I'll hold off for a minute. But to the group, thank you. And Alan, your comment about STEAM, the St. Xavier University came here, and yes, we have 72.7 square miles of so much to show this group, but a downtown is a key part of a community and represents a community, and they saw the art intersection and saw there was STEAM. And Joe, I'll just reference Richard Andrews' comment that he just came back from overseas. He's in JFK Airport in New York, coming back and meets the custom agent, and their quick dialogue, you're from Gilbert, and yes, or he said, I'm from Gilbert, and he said, have you ever been to Gilbert? Well, yes, Joe's Barbecue. So all around the world. And yet, Craig, that comes back, and we'd really like to explore that Dan Henderson High School era, the DECA Club, but in case it didn't come out, as it says up here with Craig, of the Upward projects all over the valley, and some here in Gilbert, we appreciate that, but Postino's, and now the Joyride Taco House, and others, and you're blessing the valley, and so thank you for your comments, and it's just a great team here. Jason's part of a group that we don't really have a retail place to go, but help build with vision the community. And Adelaide, that gets back to you too, an international company that we don't go there to buy something to eat, but still what you're doing and related to the science aspect of just taking technology and making it work. So I thank all 6 of you. And Patrick, you're a pretty good guy too. Now the close, we have, and you'll get this PowerPoint, so you get these tools, but we had a year ago Kevin come from the Arizona Commerce Authority, which is statewide, bringing this together. Kevin specifically has an assignment to help small businesses increase their exports. So we have the link again. There's a questionnaire where you can know if you're really apt to have a business that Kevin could help you, and his email address. Greater Phoenix Rising, that's the website. A lot of good information. In fact, Ambassador Enrique related to Mexico, some good information about how to do business there, and also with Canada. So that's a site that is helping all of us in the Greater Phoenix area. And then our local first is helping all of Greater Phoenix, and then they just recently put together a Small Wonders. Now we have Small Wonders of the World, and we have Small Wonders of Gilbert. And for those who are on here, great, because they reached out and they wanted to know a few spots to put, and we had probably 8,000 we wanted to put on here, but they picked 18. So the Small Wonders of Gilbert, as you leave today, you'll get a copy of this, and if you weren't favored to be in here, that's because they just did the first come, first serve, but this is great. And this, again, is Ambassador, something you can take with you and tell other people about. So that's part of our Shop Gilbert. And then, I went too fast. I go, okay. There. Our website. This is a tool that not everyone in the room knows about, but it's our Gilbert Economic Development website, and great information here too. And that's the link that you'll get in the PowerPoint that will come to you. We will continue on a quarterly basis to send to our ambassadors updates. And from this forum, you will get a thank you. We also get copies of the materials, and so the call to action. We come here, we get taglines. This is the group to go out and help market as Ambassadors Gilbert. And at this point, Dan and team quickly come up here, because part of connecting and Amanda is to know who are those doing economic development full-time in Gilbert, and that would be our economic development team. And Kelly, come on up, and Scott. And right here to my right. So Dan Henderson, Kelly Patton, Scott Powell, and John Zappan is also behind the scenes making things happen. This is a group you also need to get to know. And one reason why I wanted this group to come forward is, Amanda, if you can take a step forward. The official organizer of the Ambassador Forum, please give Amanda Elliott a big hand. The other call to action. So this is a farming community that grew. And so we're going to continue to grow our entrepreneurs. We had the 3 objectives that are the first 3 bullets I've listed here: the awareness, collaboration, mentorship, the tools that will come from this group to share with each other, the SciTech Gilbert. So we have a SciTech festival that's been in the Valley. This is the first year that Gilbert's jumped into it. I'm just summarizing a couple of things that Dan said. January 31st, we kick it off in Gilbert with our 2nd Spark App Award, and then we take off. The key emphasis will be in February. And the festival, as you will find throughout the Valley, is not so much just one event, it's many events. And sometimes, Adelaide, this is where I wanted to jump back in and thank you, because Adelaide is one in our community that reaches out to our young women and encourages them to think and have vision. And so a SciTech Gilbert event in the month of February, and if it's not in February, it can be other times, but could be as simple as contacting a high school to say, if you want to come over, I'll talk to you. And that would be an example of things you're doing on an ongoing basis. But if you have something related to the STEM, related to the STEAM, that you wanted to do in February, tell us about it. We'll help market it, put it in a spot where other people can see it. And then if you don't tell anybody about it, that's fine too. Part of the objectives here are to just grow together. And with that emphasis of the SciTech Festival, specifically Sci Gilbert, that's something you can do. And if it does involve others, and you need us to help market it, we'll be part of that for you. The education. Our last Ambassador Forum, getting Gilbert College and Career Ready. So this is a term we'll continue to say. And in fact, 6 months from now, part of our next Ambassador Forum will want to take some of those individuals that are here in the room and some of those teachers who are right inside those DECA clubs, right inside of our high schools, teaching entrepreneurs how to start a business and how to grow that business. And so we'll highlight some of that, and we'll get some of your suggestions, because we realize, and whether it's that 11-year-old that you're getting the berries in the backyard, it happens as early as possible, and then we grow it together. And so we'll be focusing on some of those young entrepreneurs, such as Bella, and what they're doing. And so this call to action, it has some general statements that were brought out today. It's growing together. Jim, I thank you making the hour and 15-minute drive, and yet we do this together. And you are now officially signed up to be a Gilbert Ambassador. And Enrique, continue throughout the world, but from being here today, you're now an official Gilbert Ambassador. And you're a real ambassador, too. And so we do this together. We thank you for coming. Those who are at the tables will be at the tables again as you leave, and if you have a few minutes. And now, Bruce, this is exactly what you said, where we didn't get to some of those questions, but we continue with discussion that will occur in the next few minutes, and we'll continue to grow Gilbert together. Thank you for your attendance. That officially ends the formal part of the Ambassador Forum, and the informal part continues in the next few minutes. Thank you.